Kim Soo-hyun didn't usually walk the quiet hallways of Ascendra Holdings without an entourage behind him. Executives whispered that he could sign off on a department's budget with a nod or end someone's entire career with a single phone call. No one expected him to appear in the emerging visionaries corner of the building, especially not alone. Eugenia Marshall certainly didn't. She was standing there because her manager told her to attend the small recognition event for Morale Optics. She planned to hover in the back, clap politely for coworkers she barely spoke to, and slip out unnoticed. That was the sort of life she'd built here. Competent, quiet, efficient, invisible. But when the VP finished reading names and began handing out small bronze plaques, Eugenia's name never came up. That didn't surprise her. She hadn't applied, nominated herself, or expected anyone to notice her long hours fixing problems created by people with louder voices. So, when the ceremony ended and the crowd started dispersing, she clutched her paper cup of lukewarm citrus-infused water and prepared to escape back to her cubicle, until she saw him. Kim Soo-hyun stepped into the hall, hands clasped behind him, gaze cool and unreadable. A ripple of quiet panic went through the employees who hadn't yet left. People moved faster, shoulders straightened, someone even put their phone away mid-text. Soo-hyun ignored all of them. He walked directly toward the wall that displayed this quarter's honorees. He didn't glance at the VP. He didn't acknowledge the small ceremony that had just finished. Instead, he reached into the inner pocket of his black suit jacket and pulled out a bronze plaque, polished, gleaming, heavier looking than the others. It already had a name engraved on it. Eugenia Marshall. Emerging visionary. Her heart stuttered. Employees stared at the plaque, then shifted their eyes to her, as if waiting for her to explain. Eugenia couldn't explain anything. Her hands tightened around the flimsy cup, citrus scent rising as the plastic flexed. Soo-hyun stepped onto the small platform, aligned the plaque precisely against the marble, and fastened it with a soft metallic click that seemed to echo louder than the polite applause earlier. Then he spoke low, deliberate, and unmistakably directed at her. "It's time someone saw you." Eugenia's throat went tight. Recognition was one thing, but the way he said it, like he had been waiting, she had no idea what to do with that. People glanced between them, speculation already firing behind curious eyes. She forced herself to smile, to accept the plaque's existence like it was normal, like the most intimidating man in the company hadn't just made her visible in front of everyone. Before she could form a question, before she could even step forward, he was already walking away. No explanation, no smile, not even a nod. Just a single look over his shoulder, a look that said, this was intentional. And then he vanished down the hall. Eugenia stood still, pulse fluttering. She felt the shift immediately. People were now looking at her, instead of through her. She wasn't sure she liked the feeling. But she didn't step back or hide. She reached up, brushed her fingers across the cool bronze of her name, and let herself be seen for the first time in a long time. 3 weeks earlier, none of this would have made sense. 3 weeks earlier, she was just trying to finish her shift unnoticed. By the time the clock hit 8:47 p.m., the office floor was empty, except for the soft hum of cooling fans and the faint tapping of Eugenia's keyboard. The overhead lights had already gone into energy-saving mode, casting the space in a bluish tint that made everything feel submerged. This was the hour she liked best, when no one hovered over her shoulder asking for shortcuts or pretending credit for her fixes. Alone, she worked faster, cleaner, without apology. She scrolled through the transaction logs again. Something was wrong. Not a glitch. Ascendra's systems didn't glitch. Not a typo. Not a simple miscalculation. A pattern that should not exist. Someone above her pay grade had been adjusting entries in a way that suggested intentional obfuscation. Money disappearing through a chain of short-lived intermediary accounts, each evaporating after 2 days. No memo adjustments, no routing flags, just vanishings, a careful, deliberate disappearing act. She sat back, staring at the anomaly. Her manager would absolutely tell her not to dig where she didn't have clearance. But if she didn't document the irregularities and someone else found them later, she'd be blamed for missing what was right in front of her. Her jaw set. She opened a new internal report. Not the watered-down template they encouraged analysts to submit. A real, detailed anomaly brief. She outlined the inconsistencies, attached screenshots, added a note suggesting deeper investigation. And then, because playing it safe had never rewarded her anyway, she clicked Submit. The screen refreshed. 1 minute passed. Then 2. On the 3rd minute, her screen flashed. Flagged for executive review. That alone was bizarre. Most reports sat untouched for weeks before being dismissed or passed down. But an executive tag meant someone at the very top had already opened it. A new annotation appeared under the tag. Promising. Just one word. No initials, no department. Someone had noticed her. 3 weeks before the plaque. 3 weeks before that quiet moment in the recognition hall. She didn't know it yet, but this was where everything started to tilt. She reached for her cup of stale coffee, then stopped mid-motion. Something cold ran through her. Promising. Someone had read her work. Someone who wasn't supposed to. Someone who would change everything. And she had no idea who or why. Eugenia didn't expect a response to her anomaly report, certainly not within 24 hours. So when a calendar alert appeared with the subject line "Private Consult Required" and the location set to an upper-floor glass conference room she'd never been inside, she felt her pulse flicker with unease. She reread the notification 3 times, hoping it was a mistake. Analysts didn't get private consults. Analysts got polite rejections or lukewarm acknowledgments. Something was off. She arrived early anyway. The conference room was immaculate, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A long glass table with nothing on it but a single leather portfolio, and a temperature cold enough to raise goosebumps. The entire room felt intentional, like it was set up for one moment, one purpose. She hesitated before sitting. The elevator dinged. Her breath stalled when Kim Soo-hyun entered. She'd seen him in passing. Everyone at Ascendra had, but always at a distance, always flanked by people who moved when he moved. Up close, he seemed larger, not because of size, but because of the stillness he carried. He closed the glass door gently. The soft click louder than her heartbeat. "Miss Marshall," he greeted, voice low, controlled. "I've reviewed your anomaly report." Reviewed. He said it like he personally handled every flagged file. Like this wasn't unusual. Eugenia sat straighter. "I didn't expect executive attention. It was just a stability concern." "Just is a word people use to hide their brilliance," he replied. She blinked, thrown. He stepped closer, stopping on the opposite side of the table, hands resting lightly on the chair back. His eyes held no warmth, but no cruelty either, only calculation. "You found a pattern no one in your department noticed for months." That's not just anything. The way he said it made something tighten inside her. Recognition or danger, she couldn't tell. Soo-hyun nudged the leather portfolio toward her. "I have a separate set of flows I want you to examine." Quietly, she didn't touch it. "Is this a reassignment?" "It's an opportunity," he said. He didn't smile. But there was something in his tone that implied he was testing her. Eugenia inhaled slowly. "Why me?" His gaze flickered, quick, precise, reading her. "Because you aren't careless. And because you don't assume things you haven't proven." It wasn't a compliment. It was a statement of fact. She opened the portfolio. Inside were financial movement maps, asset logs, and coded ledgers more complex than anything her team normally handled. Most entries were cleanly formatted, except for one section that had been aggressively redacted. Thick black blocks hid entire columns of data. "Are these internal flows?" she asked. "Some," he answered. "And the redactions? Not relevant for your part of the analysis." That answer bristled her. She wasn't reckless, but she wasn't comfortable being partially blind either. "I need context to work effectively." He tilted his head slightly, not refusal, not agreement, but curiosity. "Context would burden you with knowledge you don't need." "I disagree," she said, surprising even herself with the firmness in her tone. "If my name is attached to this analysis, I won't work around intentional gaps." There was a moment of silence. Then he tapped the restricted ledger once with his finger. "This stays closed. Everything else is yours to examine." She felt the boundary in his voice, cold, deliberate. But she also felt the weight of the work he was trusting her with. She exhaled. "Fine. I'll work with what I can." His expression didn't change, but something in the air did a subtle shift, like approval. "Good," he said quietly. "I chose the right person." Her heart gave a startled thud. He collected nothing, offered no files beyond the portfolio, and turned to leave. But just before he reached the door, he paused and looked back at her. "Be careful where you look, Miss Marshall," he said. "Some doors stay closed for your own good." Then he left. She stared at the sealed ledger long after he disappeared. She didn't open it, but she wanted to. Eugenia spent the next 2 days buried in the data. The office buzzed during daylight hours, coworkers weaving around her without a second glance. But her mind was no longer on voicemail cleanups or request tickets. It was on the irregular flow chains in Soo Hyun's portfolio. The patterns were too deliberate to be random. Short-lived accounts, circular transfers, amounts tiny enough to evade standard flags, but consistent enough to form a chain. Someone was moving money under Ascendra's nose, and doing it with professional precision. By the end of the second night, she hit something that made her sit back in her chair. A pivot. All the movement chains converged on a small, innocuous front company, filed under Arcadia Street Services, now dissolved. The dates matched the anomalies from the main system logs. The same hand was orchestrating both. She had to know more. She searched the business registry. The front company had only existed for 11 months. The registered address pointed to a run-down block on the south side. The responsible thing would have been to send a query to compliance. Instead, she stood, grabbed her coat, and left her office. The air outside smelled like wet pavement and city exhaust. When she reached the block, the storefront was a tiny convenience shop. Fluorescent lights flickering behind dusty glass. The clerk looked up the moment she entered. "You shouldn't be here," he said immediately. She froze. "Excuse me?" He shook his head fast. "People from Ascendra don't come alone. If you're here, you didn't tell them. That makes you vulnerable." Her stomach tightened. "I'm just verifying an old business filing." He lowered his voice. "Then stop digging." Arcadia Street wasn't a business, it was a filter. A filter for what? Before she could ask, he stepped back and pointed at the door. "Please, leave." The bell chimed behind her as she stepped out, her pulse thudding in her ears. A filter. She walked quickly, hugging her coat tighter. The clerk's warning replayed in her mind, merging with Soo Hyun's voice. Some doors stay closed. By the time she returned to her apartment, she understood one thing clearly. Whatever she'd found wasn't a mistake, and someone knew she'd found it. By Monday morning, the office felt different. Not the environment. Ascendra's 12th floor always had the same cold, filtered air and controlled hum of productivity. But the way people glanced at Eugenia. Quick flicks of the eyes, half whispers that died the moment she walked past. A shift too subtle for someone who hadn't spent years learning how to blend into corporate wallpaper. She sat at her desk, opened her workstation, and pulled up her encrypted findings. Every part of her wanted to revisit the conversation with the clerk. Arcadia Street wasn't a business. It was a filter, but she forced herself to focus on the evidence. Emotional reactions wouldn't save her. Data might. She mapped the chain again, this time from the earliest transactions. The flows spiraled inward toward Arcadia Street, then dispersed outward to dozens of consultant fees that didn't belong to anyone in payroll. Deliberate. Precise. Someone had built a funnel system, and she had accidentally peeled back its first layer. Her throat tightened. She started drafting a secondary analysis, something more detailed than the first report, then stopped when a red notification blinked at the top of her screen. Comment on internal thread anonymous. "You're being watched now." She blinked hard, pulse jumping. It wasn't the first comment on her thread. Analysts sometimes left vague tips or passive-aggressive notes about formatting. But this one was different. This one felt like breath on the back of her neck. She clicked the comment to view the user profile. No information. No history. No alias. She shut the tab. Before she could process it, she heard footsteps approach. Whispers followed behind them. A group of her co-workers drifted by Maria, James, and a man she'd never bothered to learn the name of. All three slowed as they passed her desk. Maria's voice sharpened with fake sweetness. "Look at you, Eugenia. Moving up so fast." "Yeah," James chimed in, smirking. "Big plaque on the wall. Private meetings. Special files. Must be nice having support." The man beside him snickered. Ascendra royalty. Eugenia kept her eyes on her monitor and didn't respond. She wouldn't hand them the satisfaction of seeing her flinch. Maria leaned one hand on the low divider. "Come on. We're happy for you. Not everyone catches the eye of someone like him." Eugenia's jaw tightened. "I don't know what you're talking about." Maria straightened, her perfume leaving a faint floral trail behind her. "We're analysts, Eugenia. We know what patterns look like." They walked away laughing softly. Patterns. If only they knew the kind of patterns she was actually uncovering. She exhaled slowly, forcing her heartbeat down. Her invisibility had evaporated overnight, and visibility came with teeth. She clicked open her secure workspace again. If they thought she was getting attention because of favoritism, she'd show them exactly what she could do. She uploaded the second anomaly map to the analyst thread with no name, no flair, just facts, clean, precise, undeniable. Within seconds, a new reply appeared. Anonymous. Careful. Some answers ask for sealing. Her skin prickled. It was the same user. The same warning. Someone was watching her movements closely enough to know her timing. Before she could type a reply, another notification slid onto her screen. This one, from Executive Scheduling. Dinner request. Director, Kim Soo-hyun. Location, rooftop level, East Pavilion. Time, 7:45 p.m. Purpose, career trajectory discussion. She stared at it for a full 10 seconds, unsure if she should laugh, groan, or immediately decline. She knew what co-workers would think. She knew exactly how rumors formed and how quickly they traveled. But she also knew that ignoring him wasn't an option, not when he held the keys to the ledger she wasn't supposed to open, and not when her curiosity had already pulled her halfway into whatever shadows lay beneath Ascendra's pristine glass floors. She accepted the invitation. The rooftop pavilion sat 52 floors above the city, enclosed by soft lighting and delicate architectural lines. Ascendra claimed it was a staff amenity, but only senior executives ever seemed to use it. Wind brushed against the glass panels with a low whisper as Eugenia stepped inside. Soo-hyun was already seated, posture straight, hands resting loosely on the table. A small teapot sat between two cups, steam curling in elegant ribbons. He gestured to the seat across from him. "Miss Marshall." She sat, steadying her breath. "You wanted to discuss my career trajectory." His gaze held hers without wavering. "You submitted a second anomaly analysis today, not a question." "Yes," she said. "I felt the initial report required deeper investigation. The second report is more complete." He poured tea into her cup. "And more dangerous." She froze. "Dangerous how?" "You've begun mapping flows that weren't meant to intersect. You're seeing patterns others ignore or intentionally avoid." He leaned back slightly, studying her with the same measured attention he'd shown in the glass room. "That makes you valuable. And exposed." "Valuable. Exposed." Her pulse quickened. "If exposure is a concern, you shouldn't have put my plaque up yourself." His lips twitched something almost like amusement, but too controlled to be a smile. "You misunderstand. Recognition isn't the danger." "Then what is?" "You," he said simply. "You see things too clearly. It makes people nervous." The words landed heavy. She inhaled, fingers tightening around the warm teacup. "Then tell me what I'm not supposed to see. Tell me what the restricted ledger hides." His expression shuddered, unreadable. "Not yet." "That's not good enough," she said. "If my analysis puts me at risk, I need context." "Context," he said quietly, is what drags people into places they can't climb back out of. The wind pressed against the glass behind them. The city hummed below, distant and indifferent. Eugenia leaned forward. Then give me the truth. I'm not a child who needs shielding. He studied her long enough that she felt each second pass like a test. Fine, he said at last. Here's the truth. Not everyone wants Ascendra's books clean. Some prefer the shadows. And they're watching you now. No. Her stomach dipped. Before she could ask more, his phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen, a faint shift in his eyes. Something tightened at the edge of his jaw. She caught only 3 words from the message reflected in the glass. She's been marked. He turned the screen flat before she could read further. Marked. Her. She swallowed hard. Is that about me? Finish your tea, he said quietly. Then go straight home. That doesn't answer. It's the only answer you'll get tonight. The teacup trembled in her hand. He didn't elaborate, didn't reassure her, didn't soften the warning. But the air between them felt charged, dangerous, and unmistakably real. When she rose to leave, he said her name again. Low, steady. Eugenia. She looked back. From now on, he said, don't walk alone. The wind pressed harder against the glass. When Eugenia stepped into the office the next morning, the world felt sharper. Not louder. Ascendra Holdings was always a study in quiet efficiency but more alert. As if the building itself had exhaled and turned its attention toward her, her badge beeped at the elevator panel. She stepped inside, expecting an uneventful ride to her floor. Instead, the doors slid open on the executive level. Soo-hyun was waiting in front of the glass railing, hands in his pockets, immaculate as ever. He didn't look surprised to see her, even though she hadn't pressed that button. The doors closed behind her with a hush. Director Kim, she said carefully. Is there a meeting I'm? Walk with me, he said. Not a request. They moved through the quiet executive floor, the walls lined with abstract art lit by soft LEDs. Eugenia felt the weight of the space, how everything here was curated, expensive, intentional, no improvisation, no mess. Nothing that didn't belong. She didn't belong, not yet. He stopped before a glass door labeled, Strategic Operations Authorized Personnel Only. You're not on the access list, he said. But today, you will be. She blinked. Why? Because your work intersects with ours. Ours? She frowned. I thought this was about an anomaly in the financial logs. He gave her a look that belonged to someone who spent his life behind truths no one else was allowed to see. Anomalies are symptoms. You found the disease. Her skin prickled. He tapped his badge. The door whisked open, revealing a sleek interior with curved screens and a long table scattered with encrypted tablets. 3 analysts stood inside, a Korean woman in glasses, a tall black man with a tight fade, and a Latino man wearing noise-canceling headphones. All 3 paused and stared at Eugenia. This is Miss Time. Marshall, Soo-hyun said. You will treat her analysis as an extension of mine. No one argued. That alone unsettled her. He turned to her. You'll collaborate with my team on the pivot accounts. But only the pivot accounts. He emphasized only, the way he had emphasized dangerous. Before she could respond, he stepped closer. His voice lowered. And you will tell no one you're here. Not your manager, not your coworkers, not your friends. I don't have friends here, she said before she could stop herself. His eyes flickered. A tiny reaction, but real. Good, he said. That makes this easier. He gestured to the nearest analyst, Nari, according to her ID badge. She'll brief you. But Nari didn't start the briefing right away. She studied Eugenia with narrowed eyes. Before we share anything, I need to ask, did you post the latest anomaly thread? Eugenia hesitated. Yes. Nari nodded once. Then you need to understand something. You're not anonymous anymore. Something cold slid under Eugenia's ribs. The Latino analyst, Mateo, removed one headphone. People who map pivot accounts don't stay invisible long. Why? Eugenia asked. No one answered, but their silence felt louder than any explanation. By the time afternoon stretched into evening, Eugenia's mind churned with data crosslinks and implications. She wasn't ready to voice. She stepped into the elevator, exhausted, craving the sanctuary of her apartment. The elevator doors began to close, and a hand shot forward, stopping them. Soo-hyun stepped inside. He didn't face her, didn't speak. He simply pressed the rooftop pavilion floor again. Eugenia inhaled sharply. I already told you everything I found. I don't know what else you expect from me. I'm not taking you to work, he said. Then, why? You're being followed. Her heart slammed once, hard. What? There was a man at the end of your corridor. He pretended to check his phone when you passed. I've seen his face before. She swallowed, suddenly aware of how fast the elevator was moving. Is he from the company? She whispered. No, he said. He's from a group that doesn't like analysts who map patterns. A cold shiver crawled down her arms. They stepped out onto the pavilion, where city lights stretched into the dark horizon. Tonight, the rooftop felt different, less like a sanctuary, more like a battlefield disguised with soft lighting and curated elegance. Look around, he said. She scanned the space. No one else was here. What am I supposed to be seeing? She asked. He stepped closer, just enough to make the air tighten between them. That's not how I work. That's exactly how you work, he corrected. You believe what the evidence tells you. So, here is evidence. The moment your analysis began intersecting with restricted ledgers, new eyes turned toward you. She shook her head. This is ridiculous. I'm not important enough for anyone to follow. You became important, he said softly, the moment you understood too much. Wind pressed against the glass panels behind them. Eugenia clenched her hands, trying to control the tremor in her fingers. Why didn't you tell me earlier? She asked. Because I was hoping your involvement would end yesterday, he said. Before others noticed you. Others like, who? She pressed. His jaw tightened. People who want Ascendra's shadows intact. She stared at him. Why are you protecting me? His eyes flicked over her face, unreadable in the dim light. For a moment, he looked as though he was about to speak, really speak. But then he stepped back. Come with me, he said instead. Where? Inside, he said, where it's safe. Safe. The word felt foreign. She opened her mouth to argue, and the rooftop door burst open behind them. A man in a dark jacket rushed in, mask obscuring half his face. Another figure came through the opposite side, moving with silent precision. Soo-hyun reacted instantly. With one sharp motion, he pulled Eugenia behind him and drew something from inside his jacket. Small, metallic, fast. The first assailant swung a baton. Soo-hyun intercepted it, twisted the man's wrist, and sent the weapon clattering across the floor. The second attacker lunged for Eugenia. Her body moved before fear could freeze her. She grabbed a decorative lantern from a nearby table and smashed it into the attacker's shoulder. Glass burst. The man stumbled. Soo-hyun finished the first assailant with ruthless efficiency, then turned in time to catch the second by the collar. The struggle was brief, violent, final. The rooftop fell silent again. Eugenia's breath shook. The metallic smell of smashed lantern oil mixed with the faint perfume from the broken decorative bulb. Soo-hyun knelt beside the conscious attacker, lifted his chin, and stared into his eyes. Who sent you? The man spat blood. You already know. She's the lever. Soo-hyun's expression darkened. Then he struck the man hard enough to drop him unconscious. Eugenia pressed a shaking hand to her forehead. Lever? Lever for what? He looked at her, really looked at her, and she felt the weight of everything he wasn't saying. You've become part of something you weren't meant to see, he said. And that means they won't stop. Her breath came unsteady. From now on, he continued, voice low, you don't take a single step without telling me. Eugenia opened her mouth to protest, but she couldn't. Not anymore. The rooftop lantern flickered on the ground behind them, oil glistening like spilled gold. Ascendra's annual innovation showcase was supposed to be a pristine, choreographed display of brilliance, where executives bragged, analysts mingled for visibility, and shareholders sipped expensive cocktails while pretending to understand prototypes. But tonight, the entire building felt stretched thin. Security hovered on every floor. Analysts whispered in tight circles. And Eugenia felt the weight of invisible eyes tracking her through the polished hallways, even when no one looked directly at her. She arrived early, wearing a simple black dress. Not glamorous, not flashy, just composed. She thought she'd slip in quietly, observe from the back, and leave before anyone noticed. She should have known better by now. The moment she entered the gallery space, heads turned, not in admiration, not in malice. In recognition, rumors had already spread about the rooftop incident, not the truth, but the diluted corporate version. An attempted security breach. A minor disruption. Director Kim intervened personally. Everyone had filled in their own details, and each invented detail led back to her. She walked through the exhibit floor, past holographic displays and glossy poster boards. The air smelled of citrus polish and something artificial, like manufactured excitement. A giant projection cycled through Ascendra's achievements, supply chain solutions, risk management platforms, predictive financing AI. Everything gleamed. Nothing was true. Eugenia Marshall? A voice called. She turned to see a young intern trapped behind a smoking device that had malfunctioned near a demo station. Thin, grayish vapor curled upward. Thickening fast, a cluster of attendees backed away, murmuring, expecting staff to handle it. No staff moved. For one split second, the intern's terrified eyes met hers. She didn't hesitate. Eugenia rushed forward, snatched the fire extinguisher mounted on the nearest column, and aimed at the device. Cold foam erupted, coating the display and smothering the smoke. The intern coughed once, then stumbled free. A small crowd had formed behind her. People weren't just watching. They were filming. Flash, flash. Screens lifted. Cameras caught her from every angle. "She's the one," someone whispered. "That's her. The analysis girl." Director Kim's analyst. Eugenia lowered the extinguisher slowly, breathing hard. Her palms trembled from the force of the spray, but she kept her posture steady. She would not shrink. Not tonight. A man near the back snapped a final photo. The caption typed beneath it in real time. "She's the linchpin." The word hit like a physical blow. Linchpin. The centerpiece. The removable part that held everything together, or could tear it apart. Before she could process the implications, a hand gripped her elbow gently. "Are you all right?" Soo Hyun's voice was low, but sharp with tension. She turned toward him. His expression was composed for the room, but his eyes told another story. A story of calculation, fury, and a sudden need for damage control. "I'm fine," she said. "No," he murmured. "You're visible." As if visibility were more dangerous than fire, he stepped between her and the cameras, shielding her body with his. It was a subtle move, low impact, but unmistakably protective. People noticed. They always noticed him. "Walk with me," he said under his breath. Before she could answer, security rushed past them toward the smoking display. Too late. Cameras had captured the moment already, and the moment had captured her. He didn't take her upstairs. He didn't take her to strategic operations. He took her somewhere worse, a quiet corner of the mezzanine overlooking the event floor, where no one could hear them. Across the mezzanine, diplomats and shareholders clinked glasses, pretending nothing unusual had happened. Detective Asha Coleman stood among them. Eugenia's breath caught. She recognized her immediately, coat off, badge tucked into her belt, expression sharp behind the veneer of casual interest. Asha saw Soo Hyun first. Her eyes narrowed. Then she saw Eugenia beside him. She excused herself from a conversation and walked directly toward them. Soo Hyun straightened with cold precision. "Detective. Director Kim." Her tone was neutral, in the way detectives used when they already suspected something. "Busy night?" "No busier than usual." Asha's gaze slid to Eugenia. "You keep showing up in interesting places." "I was helping someone," Eugenia said. "An intern." "I know," Asha cut in. "I saw the footage." She showed her phone. Eugenia's own face glowed on the screen. extinguisher in hand. The caption beneath it read, Ascendra's miracle analyst strikes again. That's not, Eugenia began. Asha raised a hand. I'm not accusing you. I'm warning you. Soo-hyun's jaw flexed. Detective Coleman, this isn't an interrogation. No, she said, stepping closer. It's a courtesy. She looked at Eugenia, eyes fierce and honest. People in this company don't get visible by accident, Asha said quietly. Someone's either raising you up or setting you up. Her pulse fluttered. Soo-hyun's voice grew colder. Detective Coleman. Let me finish, Asha said. He didn't like it. But he didn't stop her. Asha turned fully toward Eugenia. Pick carefully who you trust. Visibility doesn't protect you. It marks you. And in companies like Ascendra, she shook her head. People who bring light get cut first. The words hit deeper than Eugenia expected. Maybe because Asha wasn't speculating. She was stating a rule she'd seen play out too many times. Asha stepped back. If you need help, call me. I won't, Eugenia said quietly. And that, the detective murmured, is how they win. She left without waiting for a response. The mezzanine felt colder when she was gone. Eugenia turned to Soo-hyun. She thinks I'm in danger because of you. She thinks everyone is in danger, he replied. It's her job. That doesn't mean she's wrong. He looked at her, then really looked, and she saw something raw beneath his composure. Not guilt, not fear, recognition. You're not in danger because of me, he said quietly. You're in danger because of what you found. Her throat tightened. Then tell me what it means. He exhaled, a rare, controlled release of breath. I will, he said. But not here. Eugenia's heartbeat steadied, even as anxiety thrummed in her chest. She had questions. He had answers he didn't want to give. And the world around them was shifting faster than she could map. Before she could respond, a voice from the event floor echoed up. Ladies and gentlemen, please move to the atrium. There's been a minor disruption. Not minor, coordinated. And the cameras were turning back toward her again. The moment of quiet was gone. Visibility had become a spotlight. A spotlight had become a target. And somewhere below, someone was already preparing their next move. By the time Eugenia got home that night, her nerves felt frayed down to the threads. She double-bolted the door and dropped her bag onto the small table near the entryway. The apartment wasn't large, one-bedroom, open living area, but tonight it felt smaller, as if the walls themselves were leaning in to hear what she would do next. She didn't turn on the TV, didn't check her messages. Her body moved on instinct. Kettle on, shoes off, laptop open on the kitchen counter. She wasn't going to bed without understanding what she'd stumbled into. She pulled up the encrypted files again. The restricted ledger sat in its digital black box, pulsing like something alive. She shouldn't open it. She knew that. But after the rooftop attack, after the showcase, after Asha's warning, she had already crossed every safe line. Her cursor hovered over the access attempt. 1 breath. 2. 3. She entered the override code she wasn't supposed to know. The screen flickered. Then the ledger opened. Her stomach tightened as rows of Korean names filled the screen, organized under coded tiers. Asset handlers, shell facilitators, operational contacts, distribution nodes. None of this belonged in a legitimate corporate system. None of these accounts should intersect with Ascendra's financial floors. At the bottom of the ledger, a final tab glowed faintly. She clicked it. A list of outbound transfers appeared clean, organized, deliberately untraceable. Except now, she could see every pivot, every spoke, every destination. And at the very end of the map, one account flashed like a heartbeat. K. S. H. 0119. Her breath stilled. Initials. His. Not Director Kim. Not Chief Strategist. Something older. Something deeper. She swallowed hard, hand trembling slightly above the mouse. He wasn't reviewing anomalies. He wasn't protecting corporate interests. He was managing a shadow network. And she had just unlocked the part of it someone had buried for a reason. Her phone buzzed, making her jump. A message from her secure, Contact the only colleague she trusted enough to verify things with. Message. They will know you access this. Her throat tightened. She typed back swiftly. Asterisk. You saw the ledger? Message. I saw what you opened. And I saw who it belongs to. A pause. Close everything. Don't stay online. They track access by the second. Eugenia closed the files instantly. Her apartment seemed to quiet around her. The refrigerator hummed suddenly too loud, the drip of the faucet sounding like footsteps. They will know. Of course they would. Everything inside Ascendra was monitored. She shut her laptop and pressed her palms to the counter, steadying her breath. She had crossed the line Soo-hyun told her never to cross. Eugenia arrived at work early the next morning, but not early enough. She sensed it the moment she stepped off the elevator, that tight, electric tension in the air that meant trouble had already started. The office was too quiet, too still. When she rounded the corner to her desk, Soo-hyun stood waiting. No suit jacket this time. Just a dark shirt. Sleeves rolled to his forearms, the faintest tension pulling at his posture. He looked like a man holding back a storm with both hands. We need to talk, he said. Her heart lurched. Is this about? Yes. He didn't raise his voice, but the weight in his words cut the air clean. He gestured toward a side hallway, away from coworkers and cameras. She followed. He led her to a small conference room, bland walls, long table, nothing personal. The kind of room used for unpleasant truths. The door shut behind them. He turned. You opened a restricted ledger. It wasn't an accusation. It was a sentence. Eugenia lifted her chin. If my analysis links to it, I have the right to understand the full picture. No, he said. You don't. The force behind the words made her pulse spike. Not anger. Something closer to fear. Quiet. Contained. Razor-edged. Then explain it to me, she said. Because what I saw, you weren't supposed to see any of it, he cut in. This isn't corporate misconduct, Eugenia. It's not an ethics violation or internal fraud. Those names aren't employees. Those accounts aren't business-related. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. They belong to a world I never wanted you involved in. Her breath faltered. Your world. His jaw locked. She whispered, K. S. H. 0. 1. 1. 9. That account? You weren't supposed to see that either. So it is yours. Silence pressed between them. His eyes were dark, unreadable. That ledger predates my role at Ascendra. It predates this building. It predates you. Her chest tightened. Then, who are you really, Soo-hyun? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked to the window, looking down at the city far below the grid of lights, the steady traffic stream, the oblivious order of it all. When Ascendra expanded its global footprint, he said slowly, they needed a liaison to manage the informal partnerships that kept the company's path smooth. Informal, she repeated. You mean criminal? He didn't contradict her. You're not a liaison, she said. You're running something. He turned back to her. His face was calm. Too calm. I manage relationships that must remain unseen. I protect the organization from threats you'll never hear about. And lately, he paused, voice lowering. I've been trying to transition parts of that world into something cleaner. Her pulse raced. So why involve me? Because you are the only person who saw the pattern for what it was. You're the only one who didn't look away. And now I'm a target. Yes, he said quietly. You are. Her breath trembled. He stepped closer. Close enough that she felt the warmth of him in the cool room. I wanted you out of this before anyone else noticed your work. You were supposed to stay in the protected layer. But you pushed past every barrier I set. She swallowed. Because you kept lying. He exhaled hard, something between frustration and regret. I lied to keep you safe. Safe? She let out a disbelieving breath. Nothing about this is safe. His eyes softened, just barely. I know. Silence hovered again, heavy and charged. What happens now? She asked. Before he could answer, his phone buzzed sharply. He glanced at the screen. His gaze hardened. He turned the phone toward her. Text message. Move. They found her building. Her building, her apartment, her life. Her knees threatened to give way. Soo-hyun stepped forward, catching her elbow before she could sway. His voice was low, steady, terrifyingly calm. They're not waiting anymore. Eugenia's breath broke. What do we do? His answer was immediate. You come with me, he said. His hand closed around hers, not forceful, not possessive, but unshakably certain. We don't have time to argue, he murmured. You're not walking alone anymore. The world outside the conference room continued as if nothing had changed. But everything had. They moved fast. Soo-hyun didn't waste time explaining where they were going or who had breached the perimeter around her building. He guided her through private corridors of Ascendra Holdings, past doors she didn't know existed, doors without handles, doors with biometric pads instead of locks, doors that hummed faintly when he passed. He seemed to know every shadow in the building, every blind spot, every corner where danger might wait. When they reached a black steel door marked Authorized Operations Only, he paused long enough to look at her. You're safe with me, he said quietly. Even if you don't believe it right now. Eugenia's throat tightened. Safe isn't a word I can trust anymore. He didn't argue. He simply opened the door. Inside was a high-ceilinged room filled with operational screens, soft blue lighting, and a hum of encrypted activity. His team Nari, Mateo, and Darius stood at separate stations. They all looked up when she entered. Not surprised, not confused, expectant. Nari spoke first. We saw the breach alert. Mateo added, they were waiting for her car. If she'd gone home last night. We're not entertaining hypotheticals, Soo-hyun cut in. He motioned for them to continue working and led Eugenia into a smaller adjoining room filled with sleek consoles and a single floating holographic interface. Her nerves vibrated. Why bring me here? Because, he said, shutting the glass door behind them, there's no point lying anymore. She felt the shift immediately. Something raw lived in his voice tonight. Something stripped of his usual calculation. You deserve the whole truth, he said. She folded her arms. Then give it to me. He paced once, controlled, deliberate, as though preparing himself to reveal a chapter of his life he'd never intended to share. When I was 20, he began, Ascendra approached my family. Not me, my family. They needed certain relationships in place for their expansion overseas. My father negotiated protection, middle channels, territory stability. By the time I stepped into the role, the ledger already existed. And you continued it, she said softly, because pulling the plug overnight would collapse everything. His voice carried no excuse, just weight. But I've been dismantling it piece by piece. Quietly. Legally, when possible. Strategically, when not. Her breath hitched. So the anomalies were holes I left intentionally, he said. Openings for a slow transition. But someone inside Ascendra preferred the old channels. Someone who saw your report as a threat. Eugenia stared at him. Stared at the man who'd pinned a plaque to honor her, invited her to dinner, pulled her out of danger, and lied to her with a straight face. You used me, she whispered. You elevated me because you needed my skills, not because I deserved recognition. He didn't flinch. I elevated you because you were the only analyst with the integrity to follow the truth, even when it leads somewhere dangerous. That's not an answer, she said. He stepped closer, breath steady. It's the only answer I have. Silence pulsed between them. For the first time, she saw the fracture lines beneath the man, the tension of someone who lived in two worlds and never truly belonged to either. The criminal and the corporate, the shadow and the light. And she'd been dragged right into the center. What do you want from me? She asked. He took a breath like the words cost him. To help me finish what I started. To turn this ledger into something legitimate. To build a system Ascendra can't weaponize. And if I say no, something flickered across his face. Not fear. Something more vulnerable. Then I protect you anyway, he said. Even if you walk away, even if you hate me for it. Her heart clenched painfully. She didn't get the chance to answer. The building lights flickered. Red alerts spilled across the operational screens. Nari's voice cut through the intercom. Director Kim breach on the gala floor. Repeat. Breach. Multiple hostiles entering through service elevators. Eugenia's pulse spiked. Again? They're done sending warnings, Soo Hyun said. He reached for his earpiece, barking orders with cool precision. Seal floors 39 through 42. Reroute elevators to lockdown. Keep the witness contained. Witness? Eugenia echoed. Nari's voice came through again. The one who flagged the offshore transfers, the internal informant. They're coming for him. Her breath caught. Why would they? But she already knew. Anyone who threatened the old shadows had to be silenced. Soo Hyun reached for her wrist, guiding her out of the room. Stay close. They descended to the gala floor using a private stairwell. The moment they stepped out, chaos bloomed across the marble atrium. People running, security shouting, smoke curling from a punctured canister. But this time, the attackers weren't subtle. Masks, weapons concealed under formal wear. Strategic coordination. Their target wasn't Eugenia. Not tonight. It was the witness, a middle-aged compliance officer, shaking behind an overturned table as assailants approached. Get him out, Eugenia said. 2 security men were already down. A third was struggling. Before she could stop herself, Eugenia moved. Not blindly, not recklessly, tactically. She grabbed a fallen partition panel, braced it like a shield, and slammed it into an attacker's back, knocking him off balance. His weapon clattered across the floor. Another lunged toward her. She dodged, grabbed a serving tray, and cracked it into his jaw. Eugenia! Soo Hyun's voice snapped from across the chaos. She didn't freeze this time. She didn't hide. She directed security toward the witness, shouting instructions with clarity she didn't know she possessed. Cover left flank. Move him behind the pillar. Block the north entrance. They obeyed, because she sounded like she belonged in command. The witness was pulled to safety. The attackers were forced back. Smoke thinned into the air, but as the last assailant retreated, he paused long enough to lift his mask, just enough for her to see a thin scar across his cheek. She's the Axis, he whispered into his comm before disappearing into the stairwell. Not the witness, not the director, her. Eugenia froze. Soo Hyun reached her seconds later, eyes blazing. He grabbed her shoulders, breath sharp. Are you hurt? No, she whispered. But he said, I'm the Axis. His grip tightened. Not possessive, not angry, afraid. They're shifting strategy, he said. You're not leverage anymore. She swallowed. Then what? You're the threat. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. Not invisible, not forgotten, not overlooked, a threat. And somehow, terrifyingly, undeniably, she wasn't the same woman she had been 3 weeks ago. Detective Asha Coleman found her before the EMTs finished clearing the atrium. Eugenia had stepped away from the main crowd, leaning against a marble column to steady her hands. Her adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a vibrating exhaustion that felt too deep for one night. Asha approached quietly, her coat draped over her arm, badge clipped to her belt again. She didn't look triumphant. She didn't look angry. She looked resigned. I saw the footage, Asha said. You directing security, taking down a guy twice your size. That witness wouldn't have made it without you. Eugenia sucked in a shaky breath. I did what I had to. That's what worries me. Before Eugenia could respond, Asha stepped closer, lowering her voice. I'm going to ask you one more time. Are you ready to come with me? I can get you protection. I can get you out of whatever this is. Eugenia held her gaze. And what would I have to give you? Asha didn't flinch. The truth about Kim Soo Hyun. There it was. The cost, the deal. Eugenia swallowed. If I tell you everything, what happens to him? He faces consequences, Asha said. the ones people like him never seem to face. Eugenia exhaled slowly. So, I give you him, and you give me what? A different cage? Asha's jaw tightened not at the accusation, but at the accuracy of it. Look, I don't know how you got pulled into this, Asha said. But I've seen women get eaten alive by men who call danger love. I'm trying to give you an exit. Eugenia shook her head. You don't understand. This isn't about him choosing me. It's about me choosing myself. Asha stepped back, disappointment flickering in her eyes. Not choosing is choosing death, Eugenia. Remember that. She turned and walked away, leaving a trail of rain-damp footsteps across the marble floor. Eugenia watched her disappear into the crowd. Then everything around her blurred as the truth settled in her chest. Asha wasn't wrong, but neither was she. That night, it rained so hard the city lights smeared against the windows like watercolor. Eugenia's apartment felt colder than usual. She had barely stepped inside when she sensed someone was already there. A shape leaned against the wall near her balcony door, illuminated only by the soft glow of streetlights filtering through half-open blinds. Soo-hyun didn't move when she entered. He had removed his tie, undone the first 2 buttons of his shirt, but tension still pulled tight across his shoulders. Shadows carved lines under his eyes, fatigue from years, not hours. But I needed to see you. She shut the door behind her. Because of the attack? Because of everything. He stepped forward, stopping a respectful distance from her. Not reaching, not pushing, just waiting. For weeks, he said quietly, I've tried to keep you at the edge of this world, close enough to guide, far enough to spare. His breath trembled once, barely noticeable, if she hadn't been watching him so closely. But I underestimated you. I underestimated what your mind would uncover. And once you saw the truth, there was no edge left. Her throat tightened. You should have trusted me from the beginning. I should have, he agreed. But trust is expensive where I come from, and I couldn't afford to lose you before I even had you. The confession hit her chest like a soft, devastating blow. He took another step, now close enough that the warmth of him cut through the chill in the apartment. I won't lie anymore, he said. Not about the ledger, not about my position, not about why I chose you, he inhaled. You were never a tool, Eugenia. You were the one person I couldn't manipulate, and the one person I didn't want to. Her eyes burned not from fear, not from anger, but from the weight of everything she had carried alone. She swallowed. Then here's my truth, he stilled. If I stay, she said, voice steadying, it won't be as someone you hide in a corner when the world gets dangerous. It won't be as a pawn in anyone's strategy. If I stay, it's because I choose to be seen. And because you let me define the terms. He stepped closer, slowly, as if giving her time to stop him. What terms? Transparency, she said. Honesty and partnership, her voice lowered. You don't get to protect me by keeping me powerless. A long silence stretched. Then, softly, done, he said. Whatever terms you set, I'll follow. Her breath broke, not from fear, but from the certainty in his voice. Before she could answer, something buzzed against his chest. His phone. He checked the message. His expression hardened. He turned the screen toward her. A single sentence glowed across it. Plan B activated. She's been exposed. Her stomach sank. What does that mean? It means, he said quietly, we don't get time to ease into this. She stepped forward until they stood eye to eye. Then, let's move. His breath hitched, not in surprise, but in something like admiration. This time, when he reached for her hand, she didn't hesitate. 6 months later, the woman who walked through the glass doors of Ascendra Holdings was not the same woman who once blended into cubicles. Eugenia moved with quiet authority now, Director of Strategic Integrity, her team handling some of the largest restructuring cases in the company's history. Her office overlooked the city, floor-to-ceiling windows casting morning light over stacks of compliance reports. Her mug of jasmine tea steamed beside her as she scanned the latest integration summary. New channels replacing the old ones. Legal frameworks built where shadows once operated. Behind her, Soo-hyun reviewed a secure tablet, now working beside her rather than above her. They had built new boundaries, new rules, none of which required invisibility. When she closed the final file for the morning, her assistant slipped an envelope onto her desk. No sender. Arrived through internal mail. Eugenia opened it. Inside was a single photograph. Her, standing in the hallway with someone she trusted. Someone smiling. Someone who should not have been anywhere near a rival faction. One word scrawled underneath. Traitor. Her pulse steadied instead of spiking. She reached for the corkboard on her wall once used for anomaly mapping and pinned the photo dead center. She didn't hide it. She didn't deny it. She documented it. As she pressed the tack in, she noticed something chilling. In the background of the photo, half captured, in a reflection, Detective Asha Coleman. Smiling. Eugenia stared at it for a long moment. Then she said, "We're not finished." Soo-hyun stepped beside her. "No," he said. "We never will be." The city hummed outside the window. Visibility wasn't safe. Visibility wasn't comfortable. But it was hers, and she wasn't giving it back.